Hello and welcome to Deltarune. Nah, it's Vampire Survivors tonight. Part of me wondered if I should play a Deltarune in some fashion just to make the more fitting background, but then I thought I've still got plenty I can do in Vampire Survivors, and if we're honest, this is a really great, relaxing game for me to just talk about anything I want. So you know what? We're talking about Deltarune and chapters 3 and 4 specifically, because at time of streaming, those are the newest ones. And we are going to be doing more secrets here. Bloody is Grace McCabe. Okay. This one I'm going to require Final Emperor, and I need to just... I looked up what these were just to expedite my, just to expedite everything in general, to be blunt. I know for some that kind of takes the fun away, but some of these unlocks can be really, really esoteric, especially since, for example, this one requires that I freeze his most powerful form, but no inverse. It does not have to be inverse, I think, lucky for me. But I do need out of bounds. It must specifically be this one. Best person. Oh, thanks. I'm a little bit embarrassed. But yeah. I specifically have to be this character with this one, and everything else is irrelevant, apparently. Alright, what's a good one? Kree. The Saga DLC characters want the Saga weapons, so I'd best stick to these, I guess. Provides late healing, might not be bad, but... Nah. Glaive. Life Sign Scan. Just free healing. Bull Crush. Here we go. Welcome. Vampire Survivors is one of those games I come back to regularly, especially when when I want to play something but don't want a huge commitment or anything like that. So it's quite nice. It also allows me to talk about basically anything I want without a major commitment problem. Let's see. Right, this stage is actually really hard, I forgot. Yeah, I still have a lot of Deltarune thoughts. Since I've completed the chapters, I basically allow myself to look up all the stuff about it, see if anything fun goes on. Lamberger damage up. Ah, crap. Darn. Oh, I'll try it again. Alright, now first things first. Final Emperor. Here. This is not a particularly powerful Arcana, so I'm not at the peak. I could be. There. There we are. Alright, I guess I should start out with a prophecy. Yeah, as I mentioned before, I am familiar with a lot of tricks those prophecies pull. And I mentioned it on stream, but the big thing is that it never clarifies whether the first hero is Chris or the soul that is using Chris's body. That is the big thing. And given how the story is going, especially since the Snowgrave route is finally continued in chapter... It seems like they're probably going to do a Schrodinger's cat sort of situation where which one it is depends largely on whether or not you're doing that route. Because there's definitely room for it either way. There's no question they kept it vague for that particular reason. And of course, as I believe you even pointed out there, or Quill, well, the girl is an extremely vague statement. We're supposed to think it's Susie, but, well, the bonus boss that I ended up skipping mentions they think otherwise. And that's also one situation where they can't pull a Schrodinger's cat as easily. They can't make it one and one and ending another very easily. But the girl is just so generic. It could be... We're supposed to think it's Susie, obviously, but as mentioned, the ribbons are supposed... Rousey mentions he knows who's supposed to be able to equip what items, but for some reason, Susie doesn't equip any, or refuse to equip any ribbons, even though supposedly it's supposed to be for the girl there. Instead, only Rousey and Chris can equip them. Those some pretty good ribbons, make no mistake. Oh, nice, some ice breath. Duplicator is always good, no matter what. Okay. Interestingly, if say the girl is supposed to be, say, the most common fan theory for a second girl is it could be Noelle, which does seem like a strong possibility. She also has been in the Dark World and is able to help out there in various ways. But she wasn't with us since the start. Another is that it could be Toriel, which would explain why the Knight keeps trying to capture her specifically. But what's interesting is, Rousey mentions that he's been subtly trying to change the prophecy, even if just to prove to himself that, yeah, it's possible to get a different outcome than the absolute that it supposedly is, but it hasn't been successful. Yeah, if Susie really isn't the girl of the prophecy, then that means the prophecy's been broken since the word go. And that by itself has some interesting implications. That's alright. I even have a lurk command just because I know people like to step by. Oh yeah, just stop by or listen in. Oh, and on that note, this game, if you are unfamiliar with this game, there can be a lot of, by the end of any given run, there can be a lot of flashing and screen covering effects. This is very much a game that can result in a can't see shit captain situation. It even starts with an epilepsy warning because it is that a legitimate issue that they've run into with it. So, yeah, if you have to, do feel free to minimize or something if you just want to listen in. Yeah, that's worth mentioning just for safety purposes. But otherwise, yeah. Rousey's been trying to do anything to prove the prophecy could change, even if just the slightest amount, and it turns out it was never accurate the whole way through, which is kind of funny. Bonus boss does also suggest there's a bit more to it as well, since apparently it only covers things up to 6 chapters worth of events, and obviously there are 7. Something interesting to think about, that's for sure. Alright, just gonna kill this boss with this particular character, with that particular, here. With this Arcana available, so we just have to win. As soon as this guy dies, I've won, no matter, even if I lose the overall run. Well, obviously, it's still gonna be more fun to try and win. But yeah, that's really something to think about. I did look at the Snowgrave differences, and yeah, they're very stark here. Although I will say I might have been a lot more harsh to Asgore than I should have been, because yeah, he isn't. I mean, she was even quite cordial with him when she said, "At Asgore, if you want them, you can have them, but please do it outside," because, well, the whole point, she was kicking everyone out. Now, granted, I don't think it's impossible she was blackmailing him, because while he does mention that, she's nice when you get to know her, he also directly says, when my shop was having trouble, she helped me through. And yeah, as mayor, she could very easily ensure that he always keeps his shop, no matter how bad he is financially, but that also means she has absolute control over the situation. And granted, he didn't act intimidated or anything, so it's possible she does genuinely just like him. So I can't discount that maybe, yeah, her liking of him and all that, and his liking of her is genuine, like I had before. That was unreasonable of me. However, even when she's praising Chris for how much he can be trusted, the big reaction. It even directly says you feel a very cold hand on your shoulder. So while she probably does like, especially since they're in cahoots, can't throw out the ability that Chris is in fact being blackmailed. Excellent. Quest done. Oh, excellent. An upgrade too. That's a good one too. That's a room-wide attack. Alright. For all we... Now granted, it might not be that she's being malicious. She might not be intentionally trying to end the world with the roaring. Yeah. It could just be that... Oh, and I did look it up. I was trying to figure out if December had died or been missing. The game itself never specified. But it does definitely seem tied into what's going on here. Especially since we know Carol explicitly keeps everything important to the house, and that's tied to everything, including Town Hall and the things related to Town Hall, everything's related to December, all that is kept at the house for safekeeping, where she can keep an eye on it more easily without anyone else interfering. Again, there's no reason to think malice, but there's definitely something there. It could be that she's accidentally causing this apocalypse out of grief. Speaking of which, the Knight. My speculation was that either Carol is the Knight, especially since the Knight uses a katana, and we know for a fact that Carol does in fact know how to fight with a katana. She even has one in her room in a scene that I missed when I played through. However, it's also been pointed out that the Knight also seems to have a bat before it transforms into a sword, and the December explicitly has bats. Baseball bats. That is definitely true, but I don't think there's enough evidence to suggest it's December, but that's also because we don't have much on December, period. It could become a bit more obvious in the future. In fact, I'm pretty sure it will, but... That's why I also did leave the open possibility that maybe it's, ooh, Pomerola. That the Knight might simply be under Carol's command. Even if it is December, there's, at the very least, it's been very clearly hinted that Carol knows about the Dark World and is trying to figure things out, especially since it's heavily hinted to be her on the other side of Chris's phone. We don't know for a fact that even when Chris isn't under the player's control, excellent, they still do seem to genuinely care for the party members. So there is definitely some level of friendship. Like, it does take a bit longer than the player, probably, in order to like Rousey. Like, in Chapter 2, Chris was still questioning Rousey's loyalty and stuff, even if you try to have them be all enthusiastic and flirting with Rousey, but... As seen, I wasn't even in control or given a choice to hug Rousey. Yeah, Chris just did that on their own. It could even be that the whole reason this apocalypse is happening is because Carol is desperately trying to use the Dark World to get her daughter back. Because as we found out, the Dark World is, in certain circumstances, capable of reviving dead Lightners. We saw that with Gershon. Yeah, the old man Turwardus. There's definitely no way that was a coincidence. And, yeah. Road to Hell's definitely paved with good intentions there. And yeah, the thing about the girl is that it's extremely vague. Her body is much more slender than Susie's body, and the sword, as pointed out to me earlier, the sword is a lot different from the axe. Now, as I mentioned even in the stream, it's also possible the sword can just represent an offensive weapon in general, since sword is very symbolic on top of what it actually gets used for. But indeed, it is possible that it was supposed to be someone else, but if so, then even choosing Noelle would be a bit iffy, because Noelle does not equip those even when you have the short stint of playing as her. She explicitly uses rings, which makes sense. She seems to be a dedicated mage, even more so than Ralsei. Ralsei, you can actually even turn into a physical fighter if you want, since if you get Spamton's weapon and equip that on him. That basically, it reduces, Spamton's weapon, if I remember right, it reduces Ralsei's attacks, magic is significantly reduced, so the healing spell is significantly weakened, but in return, the attack power is basically put on par with Susie's. So if you want Ralsei to actually kill things, might not be a bad idea, I suppose. Excellent. Upgraded the axe to the feather spikes. Stardust. Wonderful. Oh man, how am I want to bring up more things in Clair Obscure that are surprisingly timely. Obviously, it's impossible for one to have been involved with the other. Clair Obscure was in development for 6 years and Deltarune for 7, so that tells you timelines wouldn't match up for either one to be influenced by the other. That is kind of funny. Although it did put me in the right mindset for it. That's for sure. So... there's definitely something more here. We are. I'll admit even I was wondering how much we could trust Ralsei, because as nice as it was to get to know him a little better in Chapter 3, it was still unclear. It was very clear he knew a lot more than he was talking about. I mean, it was clear even in Chapter 2 he knew a lot more about what was going on, including the nature of the light and dark world. After all, he's the only one, as mentioned, he's the only one who seems to be able to travel between worlds without being turned to stone, and the only one who seems to be... he's the only one of a lot of things, basically. It's kind of interesting, really, but... ooh, more chests. Here. Another upgrade. Gadolin. Don't need that one, but... wonderful. And yes, for the record, I have seen the new Snowgrave scenes, and I have in fact seen the modifications they did after that. I can kind of see why. I'm not sure if I agree with it or not, but it is certainly messed up enough that I can get it. The whole discussion on whether it was too far, whether it was justified or not, is beyond the scope of this stream, so I'm not going to go into that here, but... yeah, I was correct. The entire home scene completely shifts in tone and theme there. And even, in fact, gives you quite a few opportunities to go back on it. Although that does go back to what I said. I don't believe that Toby's making the game intentionally take a long time to let the fan base basically write the story for him, because that would require... the weird route would straight up not be possible. You can only make an alternate route that different if you know where the story is going to end up, especially if he's right about there only being one ending, which naturally people are still questioning given how far they've been able to differ so far, but You'd be surprised how easy it can be to make separate branching paths reconnect later on. We'd have to see. More so if it's an ending that nullifies all the previous ones, like the prophecy is true and they all die. At the end, then that would make their actions a bit irrelevant, since their saving the world would be the thing that everyone remembers more than any shortcomings. But I don't think that's going to happen. In fact, plenty have pointed out that it would seem that they all die, or they sacrifice themselves, or they lose, or whatever. It's a bit too obvious, and that's true. All we know is it cannot be a game over sort of ending, because it's a bad ending, but it's not a game over ending, because it says only then can the world be saved, because, like, if the world's died, or everyone who lives in them died, then, well, what's the point of saving them? There's nobody left. This prophecy doesn't make sense. Definitely. Now, with 3 whole chapters, there's still definitely a lot of room left for things to go. I mean, chapter 4 alone completely changed the entire direction of the story just with that. If only because we now actually have a villain there. Given Undine was the one investigating the bunker case, and nobody seemed aware of it. She seemed pretty nervous about it, and Carol refuses to let anyone in on it, to the point she keeps it all locked up and kept in a room that she keeps nobody's supposed to go into, obviously. It could be that something happened in there that she's trying to hide, or something she's trying to figure out. Or again, it could be December did die, and she's trying to bring her back in the same way that we managed to luck out and get the old man. But as Rousey said, it's supposed to be a very rare situation, and it doesn't work entirely as intended. Hence why when Susie tried to do it herself, it ended up backfiring. Oopsie. It ended up backfiring and accidentally revitalizing one of the statues designed after him instead of himself. Although, granted, that was also because he was actually in the other world, so he couldn't have been revived there since he was already somewhere else at the time. But either way, yeah, Rousey directly says that it's a very rare situation, not something you can really rely on. But Carol might not know, or possibly even if she knew, she probably wouldn't care. Even the tiniest chance would probably bring her back. Because there's definitely a lot of grief there, since the whole family seem to react in a bunch of different ways. And they never specified what illness that Noelle's dad has, but the fact that he's pretty much perpetually hospital-ridden suggests that it's probably not a light thing. He might not even survive by the end. Hard to say. And yeah, I was correct. Basically, Birdley being taken out doesn't really affect much in the long term because the character's not particularly major. All the changes really are a bunch of lines. Grab the accessory here. Though it would be kind of funny if Susie not being part of the prophecy does break it. That would hilariously mean that there's more reason to do the regular route than the Snowgrave, because Snowgrave forcing Noelle, assuming she's the true girl, quote unquote, would be basically putting the prophecy back on track, thus towards a sad ending. It's also been pointed out that the Snowgrave route requires significantly more work than the Genocide route of Undertale ever did. And the Undertale route was I never did it myself because, honestly, for the same reason I don't do Genocide routes in, like, Fallout 1 and 2. You can, 100%. It's just, and it's not even that rough, but it, especially if you know what you're doing in those games, or at least what kind of broken builds. But it's not really fun because it basically means any new town you come to is, well, everyone's gonna be hostile because of your, absolute zero karma, because of your massively low karma. And that basically means any new area you run into has basically nothing but more combat to look forward to. No new shops, no new side quests, it's just gonna be have to kill everyone. and that's just not very fun unless you're, for me. Combat systems can be great, but if it's all you're doing, it needs to be a lot better than it is in those games, I'll tell you that much. That's why some say that the only real reason to do the genocide route in Undertale is if you specifically want the super bosses, but I don't know, even... Oh, nice. Free world level, since I already had it. But yeah. It's certainly something, yeah. There's definitely something up with all the dark crystals. In fact, I was kind of surprised that the Chapter 3 secret boss was actually not a secret. It's just win the fight that's supposed to be unbeatable. Technically speaking, you don't even have to get the special item that's intended to help you with it. Granted, that requires you to do the fight pretty much flawlessly, meaning no dodging, no failing. Meaning, dodging with no hits and all that. Yeah, I don't think I have a skill for that. Polycure? There's been a lot of these kinds of action roguelike, whatever they call them. I've also seen some referred to as bullet heaven, since it feels like you're the bullet hell boss and the enemies are helplessly trying to fight you. How much you fill the screen with bullets. But yeah, there's been a lot like it. I've heard there's also some pretty good ones like 20 Minutes to Dawn or something like that. Technically speaking, even Vampire Survivors itself was not the first one. The original one was a mobile game, if I remember right. But the difference was it didn't, it lasted basically forever, and didn't have nearly as much evolution there with it. And so, kind of like how Resident Evil improved on the survival horror games that already existed. Like, Resident Evil is not the first survival horror. The first ones are something like Sweet Home or Alone in the Dark. The original Alone in the Dark, not the recent remake. Although I guess the recent remake was loosely based off of it. But yeah, they didn't invent the concept. They did modify and upgrade it, and that's kind of what Vampire Survivors did to the genre. It's kind of neat seeing the new one, different takes people have made on it. Some of the games have even added a game like this as a mini-game in the bigger one. Which does make sense. This is a very low-spec game. If you want to sound sophisticated, you could say it's a very minimalist game, because it does a lot with very little. It has very low-tech graphics, and the animations are minimal. Well, it's mostly just you and a horde of enemies with a bunch of neatly animated weapons. But that by itself could certainly still be a draw. It means everything they do perform needs to really stand out, and that certainly seems to have done the trick, that's for sure. Nice, maxed out already. No, almost. But almost, though. It's a little interesting seeing a genre grow like that. Kind of like how the Anomaly Hunt genre started with... I'm on a tangent now, but yeah, the Anomaly Hunt genre started with stuff like I'm on Observation Duty, but stuff like Exit 8 made it significantly more popular. And now there's other ones. I even did the Cabin Factory here on this very channel. A very short and sweet game, but sometimes it's quite nice. It knows what it's here for, and it does it with the gusto. I forgot what I was talking about with Deltarune, but... Chapter 3 was nice for finally explaining a bit about the Dark World itself, and it did confirm that, yeah, even Rousey is apparently born from an item from the Light World, although the game is suspiciously hush-hush about what exactly birthed Rousey. It's a shame, though. It's a shame he can't come to Light World, but I suppose it's not impossible. We could try and find a way to make it happen in the future. I mean, we've already done quite a few impossible things so far. More so if, again, if Susie really isn't the girl of prophecy and was meant to be a different role entirely, then the entire prophecy's been broken and anything is possible. This would also mean that Susie has been, despite how much Susie feels absolutely no confidence in herself. And it also means that despite how much Susie has absolutely zero confidence in herself, thinking that she's practically useless, this is if she's not acting tough, she's actually been progressing entirely on her own skill and strength without any prophecy power or anything like the others. Alright, I should probably grab this accessory as well. I mean, why not, right? Free. Free. Oh, wouldn't that be funny? Deltarune's Vampire Survivors crossover. Hey, Vampire Survivors managed to cross over with Castlevania. It's the one that influenced it in the first place, so clearly nothing is off the table now. Excellent. Probably should have spent, looking back, I really should have spent my points to S rank, force an S rank on the second area to progress there, because that would have basically made it easy for me to get the Shadow, the special item that makes the bonus boss easier. I doubt I'd have beaten the Knight, but it would have been worth a try. And if nothing else, it's a good weapon in and of itself, because it significantly reduces dark-based damage, which is, every relevant fight against the Knight and the Titan, since all those are dark creatures of the darkness. Ooh, nice upgrade. Jetstream Sam approves. I also ran into a funny problem. You probably even saw if you were watching my Deltarune stream, but I keep, long story short, I keep seriously neglecting my weapons. In Undertale, this is perfectly fine. Because if you're not going for a combat route, if you're just going pacifist route, all you really need is the, yeah, then all you really need is defense, so you could just either ignore your weapon completely or equip a weapon that increases other stats at the cost of attack, since, well, you're not going to be attacking. But in Deltarune, even as early as Chapter 2, Rousey started realizing there's some enemies that aren't going to be reasoned with, and so sometimes there is no option but to fight. base. Here. Excellent. Also think about, I was also thinking about that when I was battling a Titan, thinking, oh yeah, if I had actually paid closer attention to my weapons, this fight might have been a bit more expedited. It's not too bad if I was able to dodge a lot better, but even after I figured out the patterns, it for some reason wasn't sticking into my brain, so mildly frustrating on that. But yeah, that's definitely a good way to end Chapter 4. I wasn't sure if we were going to end up with a Knight rematch, Souped Up Knight, or what. Yeah. Regardless of whether or not the Knight is actually December, I do think December's role in the story is going to be significant. There's no way for it not to be. And yeah, because people are quick to remind something like Toby Fox is never going to be a simple matter. Like, I don't think too many guessed a lot of the stuff that was going to go on. Some of the reveals that happened in Chapter 4, I'm pretty sure they weren't exactly guessed by people very often, despite how many are going to go, oh, I knew it all along. And yeah, like I said earlier, I do think December's going to go into the factor into the story to be sure. It's just a matter of how much, because, where's the folder? Here it is. Right now, Carol was basically introduced saying, hello, I'm going to be your villain for the second half of the story. Especially with how cold she is. Not to mention, they even mentioned that when Noelle was locked out of the house, she chose to stay out there rather than bother her mom while she was busy. Possibly. We don't know if she's an abusive parent or just very stern, but either way, they want us. Toby definitely wants us to be highly suspicious of her. There certainly is a place to question. God dang, it's really getting cramped now. There's definitely room for a lot of the theories that have shown up, including December having been behind everything, but we still don't have a lot of the information available for it. But the only info we have are the hinting that, oh yeah, and I don't know how I missed it, but yeah. But whenever Rousey says, hey, why don't you close your eyes and think about what's going on right now, that's Rousey trying to speak to Chris, so without the player involving. Rousey does seem to be the only one of the party who is aware there even is a separation between Chris and the player character, which is rather significant. The only other person who will find out is Noelle during the weird route, which, again, I'm probably not going to do that one because it's significantly, well, I guess to be fair, it is significantly more engaging than the Genocide route in Undertale. Because again, like with Fallout, Deus Ex, and other ones like that, it basically means anytime you go somewhere, that just means more things to kill. And if you enjoy the combat system, that can be good, but I don't think it's enough for any of those games, honestly. No side quests when there's normally a ton of them. No shops when there's usually plenty. I guess you do get a few, but in Undertale's Genocide route, I mean, Burger Pants doesn't fear for you because he's already at rock bottom thanks to his job. Unlike his counterpart, Pizza Pants, who does at least seem to have some plans, since he mentions he's saving up for college, if I remember right. And there seems to be some disagreement as to whether his friends are giving him a fake date is them trying to be helpful or them just playing a prank on him. Could even have been both, honestly. The two, technically speaking, the two are not mutually exclusive. It could have been just intended as just a prank at the first, only to realize it's gone too far now. Interesting thing to think about, I guess, but I'm not sure where that storyline can really go. Maybe it's not supposed to go anywhere because it's basically just tangential. Here we go. Let's cash in the revives here. Already got all those secrets. Did I complete that? Yep, I unlocked it. Greatest Mechanical Songstress. I know what that one is. I have to play as Diva number 5 in the Virginia form, and I have to let me unseal from the collection room. The Song of Mana. I just need to have the Song of Mana in my inventory. It doesn't have to be evolved or anything. Malevolent Door Spirit. They have so many different altering forms. Right now. Yeah, this character. Emerald Diorama. Time to snowball. Deals more damage at full health. Well, that's not happening anytime soon now, is it? Empty Tome, just reducing cooldown and everything. Gravedigger, excellent. Thunder Kick. Excellent. Excellent. Lots of XP here. Oh, nice food. Excellent. Iron Kick it is. Ace, hurry up. Crap, whoops. Excellent. Free level of anything is good. Yeah, that is good. tome max out. Good. We still haven't figured out exactly what those shards are for, but it is kind of interesting. Actually, it's kind of funny that even Susie's been almost like Susie's being a pretty major story character. I mean, instead of that, I liked how much they've done with her character so far, but looking back, yeah, the story had a lot of focus on her in the general sense. Also, it seems like everyone seems to have a crush on her. Berdly, he, Noelle, even Chris seems to particularly fond of her, so. Getting some good permanent stats out of this. Likewise, yeah, like I said, a lot of people point out that even just the Carol being a villain seems a bit too obvious for something Toby Fox is doing, yeah. Toby Fox has always been a lot of people bring up Earthbound as an influence, but he himself has mentioned that he's a fan of Moon RPG. And if I brought it up before, it's also that I'm genuinely surprised at how much of it was directly lifted for when he made Undertale. And he doesn't hide it or anything either. In fact, he's the one who pushed through the official translation and for the Switch, which is pretty neat, especially since it's not like it was a popular classic. It was really obscure. So that was something that might not have otherwise happened, especially since the fan translation had been in the works for over 10 years, and while the fan base still had hope of it finishing, when it's been that long, it's very hard to stay enthusiastic. Yeah, it's one thing when it's like Silksong or indeed Deltarune, where it's a project that they're actually getting paid for, or on top of the passion, but for a fan translation, that's pretty much a thankless job since, especially since I've seen plenty of drama in the fan translation community. I think I mentioned when I was younger, I was a very bad little boy, and I often emulated a lot of Super NES games and stuff because, I never had one. I was a Sega household, I guess, or kind of. Well, kind of. I had an NES, then a Genesis, then an N64, GameCube, kind of like that. Then around the Wii era, I started basically moving it over to PC, and where I've been ever since. No regrets, don't worry, but it did mean I missed a lot of classics. Although, don't let anyone tell you that the Super NES library was flawless or peerless or whatever. It had shovelware like any others. It's just that, due to the sheer passage of time, pretty much all the shovelware has been straight up forgotten. That's still true as well for others. That's why you get a lot of, that's why a lot of consoles in the general sense get a lot of, man, this was amazing, it's a shame it didn't last. And I had a shovelware as much as any other, it's just that only history will be the only ones history will remember are ones that are really good and really bad. It's out here. Yeah. Not to say that Deltarune is without its own flaws. I'm one of those people who, whenever they like something, like to take it apart to find out what makes it tick, so to speak, but which is very annoying to friends since I can understand that. For some, it kind of ruins the magic. Hence why a lot of people like to say, oh, I chose X, Y, or Z as my a Poke-Sona because the Poke Mystery Dungeon said it was true, and that is always going to be special. Unfortunately, if you look under the hood, the magic from there is going to be gone, let's just say. I don't want to ruin it for anyone, but it's not nearly as magical as you'd think. By all means, feel free to enjoy the wonder of it. It's just, I enjoy things a little differently, I guess would be the best way to put it. And that includes Deltarune, picking it apart, finding out what works and what doesn't. Although I have always been vocal about not being a fan of the episodic format. I get why it's working in that way, but I have never been a huge fan of it, especially since, well, like I keep saying, it relies on a lot of information that's easy to forget between chapters. Like a number of the, a number of the Snowgrave stuff in Chapter 4 explicitly required you to remember all the details of it from Chapter 2, and Chapter 3 only vaguely alludes to it if you did it. And of course, as mentioned before, I'm not sure, we still don't have any kind of confirmation whether or not Chris is willingly working with Carol or not. He just said, you promised, you promised. And it might not even promise to her, it could be a promise made to December, or that the mother is trying to cash in on. And again, it might not even be malevolent, it might be to save her. Or maybe Chris swore that he'd find a way to save her or something. And we now have a possible chance, but it might come at the cost since it involves screwing with the Dark World to some degree. As we saw in Claire Obscure, just because they're not up to anything bad doesn't change that those ulterior motives can cause problems. Ones that could easily have been worked around, or might even just make things worse. So yeah, I think it's pretty obvious by now, the person that Chris has constantly been in contact with was Carol, and that is including following her orders specifically. Yeah. We just don't, the only thing we don't know is to what degree they're involved with everything. Could just be using the Knight's powers to their advantage without caring about the dangers, or they could be actively controlling it or participating. And I didn't realize until after, but yeah, yeah, Chris was indeed doing significantly less damage to with the Knight than anyone else. It goes away if Chris is the last one standing, possibly because of possibly for gameplay purposes rather than story. But again, that's a lot up to interpretation here. I've even looked at what happens if you actually do manage to follow Susie's advice and just after the Knight breaks the staircase and you climb it and do successfully reach them. Chris refuses to attack and simply gets knocked down like normal. Very, very interesting. Sorry, Lifetime Scam, but I need you to stop spawning. I've spoken with some friends that they've mentioned just being genuinely comfortable with the main premise alone, which I do get it. The whole starting premise is you go through character creation, and then the narrator asks you to create a character only to then go, whoops, sorry, I'm afraid you don't get to choose who you are in this universe, and then you're forced into Chris' body, clearly without Chris' permission, as we've seen. And that's pretty terrible for everyone involved. Ooh, Alright, let's just expedite this real quick. Oh, nice. That's a big damage boost in the general sense. That's gonna be quite helpful. Might as well max that out. Wonderful. Ooh, Jail of Crystal. That'd be fun. Song of Mana. Finally got it. Stormer. Wonderful. Alright, Song of Mana is the last item I needed, so we're gonna grab this. Excellent. Free Pomerola level. That's the heal over time, stronger heal over time effect, so as long as I don't take damage, I can recover this. I was wondering if we were going to ever get Noelle as another party member, or if she was intended to stay as a guest. And I think the events of the recent chapter confirms, yeah, she's meant to be a guest party member, but hard to say. As mentioned earlier, there are some who theorize the girl is actually meant to be her the whole time. While she does use rings instead of swords, there was a couple different girls, one of which who had a heart for some reason, which surprised me because only humans are supposed to have hearts. Humans are boss monsters. I guess it could also be Toriel, although I don't believe Toriel uses a sword. Although, I mentioned during stream, but I was surprised that Toriel had virtually no plot relevance. I think most were I think most of the general sense were speculating that after Noelle was a guest star party member for a bit, that there was an expectation that Toriel would also be a temporary party member for a bit, but she was kind of a non-factor. I mean, she was there, and you can't exactly remove her from the plot without having to rewrite a few things, but, well, no, you kind of could remove her, and it wouldn't be a huge deal. You just have to give another reason for them to be sticking around long after it's clear the game's over. I actually think they were probably banking on us thinking Tenno would be a repeat of the Queen situation. Hence why the big surprise at the end when he was attacked. Yeah, that was just surprising. Also surprising was when we got to see him again. I thought maybe he wouldn't be allowed to come back, but yeah, apparently he's going to be back in the Dark World. Not sure if he's going to do that again after giving him to Mettaton, but I guess we'll find out in later chapters. I also believe this is the first time the Castletown area is not required to be visited for the plot in the chapter. Although it is still nice to see everyone. You only really have to interact with the Mercy system if you specifically want to build up the side content Castletown. Although we do end up having to... Oh yeah, it's also been pointed out that Oh, I do believe I saw one theory that might be that the Light and Dark Worlds might be forced to be severed forever to save them, but... I mean, that is a tragedy, but why would that shatter the Deltarune? It seems to exist in both of them, so it's not like it would go away. I'm also probably gonna have to check and clip my own VOD for the, choir part, because... Oh no, I sing over that part. I tried to look for the YouTube of it with it's just the choir singing part and not part of a real playthrough, but the only ones I found were memes. So either I need to wait longer, or I might have to look at the song separately. But yeah, kind of interesting in of itself. I still like the Flamberger a lot. I like that weapon in this game, I mean. Free level of anything's good. Thank you. Out of the frying pan into the fryer, sheesh. And again, I seem to have a decent, I don't know, honestly. Excellent. I will, however, say the fan base is extremely quick. It's not, at the time of streaming, it's barely been it hasn't even been a week since the game was out, and people have already made some fan games and fan animations. Some of them are probably pretty easy, like making, excellent, upgraded the Song of Mana to the Managa. I don't know how it's pronounced. Sorry, I do not know how it's pronounced, but yeah. I guess the rhythm minigame is not too difficult, especially since you already have, if you're borrowing the Deltarune assets, it's pretty easy to do without much. Just recycle those and then work from there, but other ones, like the full animations of the new events and stuff, that, you had to move it at light speed, holy crap. Fan base can be both amazing and scary at the same time. Is it worth it to get this floor chicken? No, but I'm going to anyways. Excellent. Stadaraba. Mega. Sparking these texts is so satisfying, I think. Just like it was when I played Romancing Saga 3 earlier this year. I played Romancing Saga 2, but that's the only Saga games I've ever played, unfortunately. And even the Romancing Saga games are notably different from the main Saga games, which this is a DLC for. Which is, Emerald Vision, I think it was. Something like that. Although I guess, think about it. I guess since Undyne was confirmed to be the one who was investigating the bunker incident and was a bit unnerved about it, could also explain why the Knight had to kidnap her in particular. Not just for a code, but to ensure that we couldn't specifically. Oh, and I think I mentioned that on stream as well, because yeah, if Carol is the Knight, or at the least the Knight is under her command, then that would mean that she would have access to the bunker to get anyone there she wanted. Yeah, as neat as the Knight is, December theories are, there's just too much evidence that shows that Carol is at least heavily responsible, involved with, at least, if not responsible, at least heavily involved with the Dark World events, because everything just matches up well. She would have easy access to all the codes needed to open that bunker. She knows the truth behind it. She she's connected enough to December and Chris's past to be blackmailing him and require that he make Dark World. Because remember, whoever he was speaking to forced him to make the Dark World to distract everyone. Chris turned on the TV, slashed the tires, knowing his mom would call the police on there. And create a Dark World to get everyone sucked in. And whose orders would that be? When we first heard Chapter 2, well, during Chapters 1 and 2, the big speculation was that Chris might actually be Chara from Undertale, which was why the Chapter 1 is supposed to end with you thinking that pulling out the knife was to kill Toriel in her sleep or something like that, when it turns out no, Chris was just stealing pie. After stealing pie when they weren't supposed to. So after this turned out to be a lot more benign, clearly, the character clearly opening a dark portal on screen absolutely would get everyone to question their motives again. And now it's happening again with questioning motives about, well, now we're mostly questioning Carol's motives. Is it because if Carol is not blackmailing Chris? It could entirely be out of loyalty. I mean, Noelle and her family were close with Chris's family for quite a while before December disappeared, and that's ultimately what's going on here. Carol might even genuinely like Chris and just be afraid to show it, but it's been pointed out that the "you are welcome to be here anytime you want" was in the same color as the Red Soul font. So it's possible she might also know a lot more about what the situation Chris is in. Although I guess if Chris told her, that's also a possibility. Although since if she's making Chris choose between loyalty to friends like Ralsei and Susie, because remember, Chapter 3 and 4 made it clear that even without player control, Chris does seem to genuinely like the crew now. What? But they also have loyalty to Carol, and that would mean some conflicting loyalties if one has to be chosen over the other. And of course, there's also the elephant in the room. Chris very clearly hates the player character being stuck in their body and rips it out to do stuff regularly, but then always puts it back in. The only time you ever force yourself back into Chris is during the weird route for Chapter 4. So with that in mind, Chris has to be getting something out of this deal themselves, or considers this a necessary evil somehow, especially since, again, we at least seem to be aware that Ralsei is working with them to some degree, that is being kept from the player. I mean, it was I guess I could understand missing it in Chapter 2, but I don't know how I could have missed it in Chapter 4, because there's at least 2 times that Susie immediately walks through a door, and rather than simply do the simple thing of following her, Ralsei says, "Hey, Chris, why don't we close your eyes and imagine what's happening right now?" I don't know how I didn't realize how suspicious that was. I swear I can be completely oblivious sometimes. Or maybe it's because I wanted to be able to trust the party. I mean, I guess we do now know that Ralsei is trustworthy. Ralsei just doesn't know. Ralsei just doesn't know how much information can actually be shared without making everyone sad or putting everyone in danger, because Ralsei came into existence with all this information for some reason, but has no idea why, other than it just has to happen. It's definitely been quite the adventure, that's for sure. But yeah. So much we don't have answers for, and in some cases can't have answers for until later. Either way, it seems like the story started at the bunker before the character even got involved. Because whatever happened in there, nobody in town likes it. Alphys even mentions it was already sealed off by the time she arrived. and that she wouldn't, and even insisted that she wouldn't use it even if there was a disaster that would force it, because she's convinced whatever's in there would be worse than whatever the disaster is. Go back for that. I can't leave that chest alone. I'm too greedy. Yes. I shall play Pot of Greed. And then give that really weird expression the Pot of Greed gives when the upstart goblin tries to steal it. Excellent. More money. Might as well get the free level. Either way, it seems the festival is very clearly going to be Chapter 6. Pretty much everything revolves around that right now. And we might even see Burley again since he's alive here. If you do the weird route, Burley's actually apparently in the hospital, but a lot of people speculate that since you're given a few options to abort the Snowgrave or weird or whatever route before it's too late, some speculate that that's specifically there so that if you abandon it, he can survive, while if not, he won't. Hard to say at this point. I mean, most thought he was already dead. I have no idea which teleport will bring me where I want to be. There's a chest here, I don't know where it is. It's not here. Oh well, might as well get the Corona's mana. Oh, that's a new chest. Excellent. Lots of stats up. Crap, that's a long area. Well, balls. The big thing about the Snowgrave route, or weird route, or whatever we want to call it, is at the end of the day, we ultimately don't know where it's going to head. Some just think it's going to be another bad ending, like with Undertale, but the thing about that is, as mentioned, the Undertale one was significantly less work. There was virtually no real difficulty in the Undertale route aside from the 2 bonus bosses. Everything else was basically just busy work, which makes sense. The entire point of the route in that game was to poke fun at how players want to see all the content and will do ridiculous stuff, even though in universe it comes off as crazy. Even if there's no reward. That's also why the games don't have any achievements or anything. Pretty much entirely to make sure that the players' choices are on themselves. Might as well grab this. Lots of levels. I guess that was the main points on my speculation. Oh crap! My speculation on the prophecy, the uncertainty of Carol and December's roles in the story, me being too harsh to Asgore. Yeah, and of course the fact that we can't take anything as too given or obvious because Toby Fox loves to throw a curveball. I mean, there's a lot of stuff even in the data specifically that off for no other reason than to basically get the player or to second guess everything. And of course, there's a lot of speculation on characters that were not in Undertale at all. Like, there's a few NPCs that were never there. I think one was part of the Gaster, the Professor Gaster ARG, but I never followed that, so you'd have to ask someone who followed it to full details. And stuff. And of course, Susie has absolutely no counterpart in Undertale. Some have speculated she was a character mentioned, but that name was spelled completely differently, so... Yeah, well, upon thinking about it, the fact that Susie bled red blood is itself rather unusual. Because remember, monsters, when they die, they turn to dust. They aren't supposed to be, they're not made of the same flesh and bones that, humans are. So that's rather interesting. And of course, the big question, if the player character is a separate soul from Chris, where's Chris's soul? Is Chris even human? I mean, they seem to be here. Judging by the way they are in the world, but it's one of those really weird situations where nothing seems to make any sense. I think we're about done with this run. I remember there's some interviews between chapters 1 and 2. The big reason it took that while is because Toby Fox knew the main points of the story he wanted to hit, but he didn't have the exact details down until chapter 2, which is also why a lot of the main mechanics in the game didn't really show up until 2, like the sparing monsters specifically to recruit them for your town and such. It's nice side content and does give you the option that it is a nice side thing for people who want to collect. Maybe when the new chapters come out, I'll definitely be continuing. I might make a new file. Part of me wants to make a new file just because, as mentioned, a lot of the item fusions and such can be a lot easier if you started. Not to mention bonus things, but I'm also not sure how much I want to do the bonus bosses exactly. I mean, Spamton's not too bad. I could probably handle him, maybe even Jevil, but you saw I got completely and utterly bodied by the night fight. It's in chapter 3, and that's the bonus fight there. Just win the fight you're supposed to lose. The story still continues, but you do get the reward out of it. And I missed the bonus boss for chapter 4, but yeah, it was I probably shouldn't have, if only because it has some nice exposition, but it's hard to say. But that bonus boss is the main reason that some speculate that Susie might actually not be the chosen girl mentioned there. And yeah, if there's one in the prophecy that's not the case, it's gonna have to be her. Early on, people did speculate that it might be Lancer that's the Prince of Dark, but we now know it pretty much has to be Rousey because he's the only one who can travel between these dark worlds, going to World's End stuff and not turn to stone. It's not impossible that it could be Lancer since he's following us repeatedly, but like with Rules card, I'm not hedging my bets, we'll just say. Likewise, I do think with Chris, there's definitely going to be a sort of Schrodinger's cat where the true first hero that's human between Chris and the heart human soul is going to depend largely on what plays out between the weird route and regular ones. So the biggest one that could possibly change is definitely Susie's. I mean, even in Chapter 4, she started actively taking point a lot more, just to show how much she's grown from there. Still Susie, of course, so like you say to that one person, Susie cannot be tamed. There we go, finally died. Had to break through all the shields. There we go. Imaku innately knows Hell's Fury and Blood Rage. And I do believe, yes, that is all of the Emerald Diorama DLC characters. Nice. By a number of other... Right. And let's reseal the Song of Mana. And what's the next one? Right, the unlocks are all completed, so secrets again. Definitely two. Still something better. Personally. Secret so big it won't fit past the door. That's the door. Let me take a look at the secrets again here. Alright, I completed all of these, so let's look at the there's someone here I was missing, but Do I actually on? Contains a heart refresh every 2. RNG because I need this candy box, so it might be good to hold off on that one then. Alright. Gonna have to activate the Cerberus ones and deactivate the Dominus. Alright, I'll grab a sip of my drink and we'll dive into the Ode to Castlevania stage here with this guy. Get another secret unlocked. I still love the Chapel Sanctuary or whatever it's called music. Deltarune in particular. That one's the favorite. Is there anything good here? No, let's just go with the beginning. There's no sequesters. There we are. That's 2 Cerberus heads. Oh wow, already? Don't mind if I do. Delicious. Empty tome to reduce cooldowns. Alright. We'll need the statue. Oh yeah, that's it. Base area up, that should be good. Attract orb to be sure. Interesting thing to bring up. I guess one thing I could bring up is lastly there is some speculation that there might be possible to generate a soul. The red dye you see with the Noel and the Snowgrave route could very well be. It could be her generating soul of her own. It is said that genuinely powerful monsters have one, hence why it's usually just boss monsters, but since the entire point is to make her stronger, to the point it gaslights her into thinking that Chris is doing it to help her, quote-unquote Chris, is... possible. It's definitely a rare thing. Then again, the books in the library that recap on the details are definitely not a coincidence. They definitely want to remind you of the rules of human and versus monster souls. And again, there's a lot of details about it's Chris and even Susie that we don't know about yet. Things that just don't seem to be adding up given what we know about their respective species. It was also pointed out to me in my own, even in my own stream, that when Susie brings up the funeral, the rituals for the monsters, she says they do that. And almost as if it's not something her family does. Although as established, she doesn't seem to eat food much, or might not even have a family anymore. We don't know. All those things that she hates talking about. I mean, when Toriel's will ask Susie to stay the night for her safety after seeing the tires were slashed, she recommended calling the parents, and Susie explicitly only pretended to be doing so. Whatever home life is, they either don't care or don't exist. And I'm leaning towards doesn't even exist anymore. Well, she does go into her backstory a bit here. Well, she does go in the backstory a little bit. That was still quite a while back. I figure I should probably push through there. Interestingly, apparently, if you try to say never play the piano again, Chris gets angry and tries to interrupt it with a yawn or something, or even biting their own hand if it gets that bad. Come on, give me all the XP. Excellent. Yeah, I definitely need to level the Cerberus heads above all else, because evolving it and killing a certain amount of enemies is the primary way I unlock this here. Yeah, normally Cornell has to wait until you upgrade one of the base weapons to properly transform and go Super Saiyan, but like most transformation-based characters, there's indeed a way to make oh, nice. I didn't realize that was a full screen nuke. I guess it's been that long since I used it. Dang, it's like an even better... What's it called? Even better pentagram. Sheesh. And you can get it with no RNG whatsoever. You just literally buy it. I think one of the Sitkits requires the Succubus, so I think that was a worthwhile purchase. And I guess if I'm jumping around topics so much, I just have a lot on my mind. It's hard for me to get initial impressions immediately after a game ends. Usually I have to sit and let it settle, sometimes talk with some people, and properly settle my thoughts. It's both good and bad. Like, there's some things I appreciate. For example, to use a non-Deltarune example, I appreciate a lot of stuff about Clay Obscure a lot more after, although I did also notice a lot more of its flaw, as like Act 3 in general. For a troll bomb, this isn't trolling me very much. In fact, it's quite welcome and enjoyable. Cerberus power. They build some areas I probably wouldn't have minded grinding for money, but I will admit when I do stream, I do sometimes act a little differently than normally. I mean, this is something that's gone on record for a lot of streamers, so it's not exactly unique to me, but you know, like when I played Hades back when that was new, I found myself taking a lot more risky paths than any time I played it on my own, just because, well, it's usually a lot more entertaining to see the risk versus reward. I try not to get too frustrated when I die. Yeah, since I'll sometimes seeing people laugh at the misfortune check in itself being kind of nice, but well, at the end of the day, no one likes losing, so I might as well max out Duplicator so that it stops bugging me about it. Cerberus power. Here we are. Oh, it's some good damage. Shame nothing got just. I mean, shame it didn't damage the boss at all, but oh no, it did. Okay, yeah, never mind. It weakened it a pretty good amount. And there we are, upgraded to the Cerberus. And now we're in werewolf form. Oh yeah, that's a nice thing about the Cerberus weapon. It absorbs all the other. It absorbs all three into. Uses all three into one. So you no longer have to worry about it. Oh, wow. That's covering screen pretty badly. But then again, what else is new in this game, right? Projectile was pretty nice, actually. Heavily reduced cooldown, not bad. Although, yeah, that's a direct upgrade. Dang. Or a blast. Lots of wonderful XP. Players really love to make its characters suffer, and it seems that's probably gonna happen to Deltarune's crew too. Then again, I guess we'll have to see. It seems like, at the very least, so far, it seems like there's not necessarily malevolence in what's going on. It's just that grief and possibly bad decisions and possibly bad loyalty is contributing. Like I said, it could also be that the promise made might have been to December and just, again, Chris's promise could have been December and Carol's cashing in on it, or Chris might have made the promise early in the story, possibly even as early as chapter 1. And any possible regrets coming in are too little too late at this point. Bluey. Oh, crit damage by 7,000. Holy crap. That's a lot of damage. That's a lot of damage. You know what, let's get Mad Season. That was a bit interesting. Extra passive, why not? Actually, probably get all of them at this rate. Last longer. That's going a lot better than I thought it would. Skull level, don't mind if I do. Fun to speculate. It is important to remember that because we're only about halfway through the story, well, I guess since we're halfway through the story, it's a lot more likely than any theories that come out now and might have something to them. Like, at the end of chapter 2, it was highly speculated that Chris themselves was the Knight. In fact, I even went under the assumption that they were. and it was just gonna be the main character versus the protagonist. If that makes any sense. I guess, to be fair, it could still be the case, but you get what I mean. Now we have a much better picture of what's going on, but not all of it. Even under the only absolute evil character as well, the player character in performing the genocide route, and that's also why many speculate that it's unlikely Toby's gonna pull that again. Definitely was trying to make us think he would. Absolutely, but that's why the first chapter ended with Chris giving the Chara smile and then pulling out a knife out of seemingly nowhere. But no, as confirmed in chapter 4, nah, Chris just always carries a knife around and is actually like, embarrassed about it, going by that blush. When Susie goes, wait, you just carry a knife with you all the time? Ah, awesome. Or a blast, or a fawn. Excellent, excellent. I'll grab that since it's not level anyways, so. Might as well get a familiar. Pumpkin! As for where it's all gonna go, even I don't know if Toby's telling the truth when he said there's only gonna be one ending. I mean, he could pull a technicality like, oh, there's only one ending, but there's like an epilogue after if you get all the shadow crystals from the EX bosses or something. And of course, he continues to insist that the story was what he had in mind before even making Undertale, and Undertale was just supposed to be a bit of a test of his skills, which makes sense. The only game experience he had prior to making Undertale was mostly just stuff with Homestuck. Good, but not exactly the main appeal. Level to Fulgurg. Oh yeah, Toby did say that he was working on this game. He had the idea for this game even before Undertale, but it's a bit tricky for that. Like, even, especially in episodes 1 and 2, it was extremely clear that a lot of the jokes and references specifically required you to at least be familiar with Undertale, if not having played it before. interactions. A lot of jokes like you reading Sans, he's all, "Ah, that's pretty nice of you," especially for someone you've never met before. Wink, wink, hint, hint. He's not wrong, it's kind of funny, but if you haven't played Undertale to know how important all these characters were in the previous story, it's gonna fall on deaf ears a bit. So a lot of those, not to mention a lot of stuff seeming off, like Alphys and Undyne having not met. It's a little awkward. Again, you only really know that if you played through Undertale first, otherwise it's gonna be a bit odd. I don't mind hints and callbacks, but if you're gonna recycle their whole cast, constantly reminding the previous game might be a bit, not be a bit much. Might be a bit much. Granted, it was cut back significantly in episode 2, and that is definitely to the game's benefit, I'll say that much. Oh yeah, here's the boss. Is it gonna be the werewolf form or the regular form? Regular form, since that was where I started. Sadly, it seems all he can bring out is the, yeah, all he can really bring out is yeah, throws the, rune, and that's about it. The magic rune, and that's about it. Might run out of things to talk about before the stream runs out. Oh dear. Well, it's fine. Last time I definitely went way, way too late. Thinking about it, I really should have separated Chapter 4 into 2 nights. That way I could finish it up tonight, and then again, I wouldn't be able to do my speculation. Because while I could have, if we just go halfway through, I could have easily done my speculation regarding Carol and December's connection. I wouldn't be, well, the story's not over yet, so I wouldn't have looked over some theories and such to discuss here tonight. So I wouldn't be able to discuss the ways the prophecy might be screwed with, or the way we might be able to mess with things. Or if we'd even want to screw with it. Because again, the game went out of its way to make sure we don't learn, and we don't learn the blood details. Now granted, some of the stuff is rather inconsequential, like it doesn't actually matter what item gave birth to Ralsei, all that matters is that it did, so that we finally have Ralsei. I do appreciate the time stops during these bigger boss fights. Candy box. Ooh. Alrighty, let's take a look. I'll look for absorb. Really bad weapon, but it'll absorb all of all weapons. Oh hey, I almost had the 100,000 enemies killed for the quest. vampires. Are slow moving damage zones. Let's see. Think about it, I guess, yeah, the Susie Noel, a lot of characters have no clear parallel in Undertale. Might be intentional just because the Undertale gave certain characters time to shine and now it's time to give these other ones. Like, I know ones like Papyrus are mentioned but never directly seen. Might as well get the positive ones of these. Might as well get a preview one of these. Deltarune folder along with the others, but then again, Vampires are randomly gameplay folder about Deltarune. Then again, it is speculation, so it'd be good to think about it. As I said, it's not like Chapter 2 we thought, okay, so Chris might actually be the main villain the whole time. And that was definitely way too early, but here, we do have, like I said, Carol basically introduced herself saying, I'm going to be the main villain for the remainder of the story arc. You know, the next chapter is absolutely going to be the festival. And the... like I said, we know that there's involvement. The only question is to what degree, what ends. Oh crap, I missed the item there. Alright, I'll go back for it. If we could find a way to get Rousey back, although into the light world we just have to figure out a few things that should theoretically be impossible. Can't be too hard, right? I just wondered if I should challenge run this stuff a bit more, but I don't know. I'm one of those people who can't even play speedrun games like Pizza Tower or Neon White because I know that if I do, I'm going to be thinking, oh, if I don't do at least a certain minimum level of good, I'm just wasting everyone's time, including my own. And spoiler, there's not going to be a good enough. This is all never going to be good enough. Unfortunate, but that is kind of how it works. So, not much I can do there. Oh, here's the entrance. I can come back for it. Yeah, I got the 100k kills for this very easily. I guess if I do decide to do the EX bosses, I could mix and match. Only it's a matter of what you want to do for it, because I've seen plenty who do multiple different ways of handling it. Who cares what I look for? Easy. Alrighty. Give out what is not too loud? Explode. Guess I should decide on the next story game though. I was originally planning on Fate Grand Order and finishing a lot faster than I was expecting, which is good since it meant I didn't have anything to worry about when I hard stopped to get Deltarune going, but Deltarune, well, like I said, I definitely could have made it last longer than I did. Although I guess I wouldn't have done much. Like I said, I'm not sure how much I want to actually fight the EX bosses, although there are nice rewards. I could start from scratch, but again, we're only halfway through the story, so I'd have to do it again with the next one, and then the one after that. It might just plain be easier to do it the long way. You know? So there's still other games I could do pacifist runs or genocide runs of if I wanted, and those don't necessarily require time. Like the other roguelike I usually play a lot is Streets of Rogue, which is kind of like a bit of old school GTA meets Deus Ex in terms of roguelike. So, definitely a lot of potential there. Enemies have stat. Bosses typically scale based on your level, and I'm almost level 200 now, so they can be a little beefy. Not beefy enough, of course, because I got basically all passes in the game now. As mentioned, I'm one of those people who doesn't mind grinding in an RPG, so I wouldn't mind grinding for troops or for money and Deltarune just to supply myself sufficiently. But at the same time, it's a lot of time and I do worry that that might not be interesting to watch. And plus, it does seem like the healing items stuff all do upgrade between chapters along with the characters. Like I did, even between the two chapters I played, I saw the characters clearly got stronger, even though they weren't leveling, which, well, no, even though they weren't getting love. Because, right, XP is not experience points in Undertale, it is, XP is execution points, and LV is love, which is level of violence, not level like you're supposed to think. Even in Snowgrave, you do not get a level of violence. Nor execution points. Well, you see where I it goes to. For better or for worse, the genocide route existing at all in Undertale was a huge part of what got it to have so much staying power even to this day. Even if you never play it, the fact it does and you actively choose not to can itself be like even actively choosing not to pick up an item, not to take a route like that, still can be a statement in and of itself. Although sometimes people get way too heated over it. Beats me if it's going to be the same in Deltarune, though. While Deltarune is absolutely popular, I mean, I think I mentioned I straight up could not buy the new Deltarune chapters when it came out because the Steam store kept crashing, and I was not the only one. A lot of people had that issue. Whether or not it's a more popular Undertale is very difficult to gauge because, first of all, it's not complete, but also Undertale is basically a whole phenomenon. Even just seeing someone wearing the Undertale heart was basically a huge statement in and of itself. I guess it just helped that it was very easy to project yourself onto, since, well, that's kind of the point. Both the Chara and the player's character's soul in Deltarune are specifically intended to have the player put their own name in there. The same or similar sense of putting your own name in during Chrono Trigger is supposed to make the, Is this a big spoiler if I list what happened in a big part of Chrono Trigger, a game that's over almost 30 years old now? Yeah, so when that, if you know, you know. When that thing happens to Chrono, that's supposed to hit you really hard because, the character's supposed to be named after you. You're supposed to think, wait a minute, how's that happening to me? Very few games can elicit that kind of response. And it is a huge risk, since if it doesn't work, it could come off awful. Might as well end the run now because we got it. Let's quit and cash in our revives real quick then. Backward. Oh, unlock the cave troll. Oh no, I think I might have already. No, I didn't. This is where I can unlock too. I didn't need to unlock it. We have Cornell though. Wolf Cornell. Just gains might every level. Blue Crescent move. Crap crack. Let me grab a sip of my drink real quick. I seriously might have exhausted everything I was intending to talk about. Oh my. Embarrassing. bunch of these I could still do. Pick one more time secrets again, see what's up here. Secrets. So I guess I could try my luck with Julia. Trying to get 2 familiars in a single game. Where's Julia? Now I have our unlocked game. You're not going to hide her from me forever. Here we are. Sarabe of Healing. You know what? Castlevania. Receive an item here when the limit. Verge Reflectio, a damaging light that also grants healing. X. Spells time. Stone Mask. Excellent. More cash. It's also going to unlock the shopkeeper so that I finally purchase blast items. I don't think it has to all be in one run. In fact, I'm not sure it's impossible because he carries 6 items and you always start with at least one weapon. There's 2 more projectiles. Level of anything. Looks good to me. Yeah, I know for some people Deltarune is one of those games they could replay over and over again endlessly. But I've got a lot on my plate, that's for sure. I wouldn't mind playing it from scratch, but like I said, my big concern is I'd have to do it all again. I'd have to do it all again with each chapter each year. I guess it's not too bad to be replaying it once a year, since it's not like, Wait, what does the Gale Force upgrade with again? Bracer, got it. I'll increase my damage. Yeah, some have told me they do genuinely feel like each game could be, basically, each chapter could be a full game in itself. I think for 1 and 2 it could kind of feel that way, because 1 was basically a proof of concept to see if people vibed with the idea, while 2 was just setting the stage for the real stuff, hence why, why a lot of the long-running stuff, like the town building minigame is only available in Chapter 2 onward, rather than being interested in Chapter 1, like you might expect of something that's basically the entire game. Finally, brace her. I'll go grab this one, I guess. Candy box. Familiar forge. Sacred tiger. Tractor. Yeah, that's gonna make my life so much easier. Reorb. Mind if I do? At least the spells are going well. Excellent. Yeah, I did like Deltarune. I'm not sure if I'd replay it that frequently. As nice as it is, first of all, the story is still incomplete, so while it is nice to look through these and do some, even if I did the content I did before, it's not like there's really different builds and stuff for the characters. There's a nice selection of passives, I suppose, based on equipment you give, but there's really no there's not much customization in the general sense. Like, the best you can do is give, like, Spamton's weapon to Rousey to convert him from less of a mage into more of a physical fighter like Susie, but maybe that might even be power crept by a later option in a later chapter, since we know there's going to be 7 bonus bosses. There has to be, because we need the 7 crystals. How much those are going to impact things we've yet to see, I suppose. Definitely something. Granted, not every game needs to have a complete variation of builds and stuff for replayability. It can certainly help, but as mentioned, there are people who basically replay Undertale every year, and that game doesn't really have any build choices or anything. It's just a matter of which ending do you want, and, well, there is something like 12 or 13 different variations of the neutral ending. They are functionally the same, since all that differs is the phone call at the end of the story. Otherwise, it's basically still ambiguous what happens to the character afterward, as well as since it basically just tells you what happens in the underground after you leave. Is the creature forge around here? Yes, it is. It's right there. So yeah, I don't need Mad Season to get that. I can just get on my own. Air of Goth. Arrows fired by Goth girls, always useful. Although I guess there is Goth adjacent as well. Three levels of plenty, sounds good to me. All that matters is, does it vibe with me enough to want to replay it often? But often. And also, I don't know. I mean, it was just a few months ago, I might have actually said that maybe it would be, just because I got fully excited, but like, I had to specifically mark this as spoilers here because it's well, it's worth playing, that's for sure, and it's new, but so is Clair was definitely one of the bigger surprises. When a friend came to me with it, I thought, sure, I'll get into it at some point in the future. He's all, no, now. And I am nothing if not completely bullied by peer pressure. Nah. But I am genuinely glad I was able to play it, and I went through mostly, I didn't even know the premise. I know it had been discussed by a couple friends prior to me playing it, but I didn't really have the full details. I didn't even know the premise about the premise where the paintress puts a number and then everyone above that, whose age is above that number, and just evaporates. I mean, it's made pretty clear early on that people were about to die horribly from it, but I didn't realize they were just gonna evaporate. Because yeah, I wasn't sure if it was one of those spells that kind of will seek and destroy, like that one, like the extermination machines in the Matrix, or I was sure if extermination machines in the Matrix, or if it was going to just teleport to where they are. Basically, I wasn't sure if the spell had to find them, locate them first. Like, could you run, hide, or anything like that? No. No, it just kind of gets you wherever you are. Even Expedition 60 there is, couldn't escape it, and they somehow use the power of buff nudity to get past the barrier. Or to just evaporate it, others went near it. No, I will not elaborate, because context is not going to help. It is just as crazy and context is out. I was originally going to do both endings to a Clair Obscure, but since I found out you can only do one per playthrough, I'm not sure if I want to go through all of that again, because that's a lot to have to go through again. It's not bad. In fact, it's not even a very long game if you just gun through the main story stuff. But at the same time, I don't know. Some hexes. I mean, I guess I can stall the next game for a bit, just thanks to the games like this being nice cooldown and chill stuff. I might even do some Marvel Rivals again. Maybe I'll start my Adam Warlock arc, since he and Ultron are the last two healers that haven't been converted to heal bots, basically. But we'll see. I've got an awful lot of options, but then again, I guess that's a nice problem to have. Deltarune just made it easier because, I mean, of course I'm going to be focusing Deltarune, why wouldn't I? But not all games that come out make it easy that choice. Money time. There we go, the statue's been upgraded. The statue's at its maximum level. I'll try it. Right, I should probably get the cursed item out of this one when I'm... Alright, look at the cursed Skullomaniac. There we are. Just for some more enemy count. They're gonna be tougher, but I think we can handle it. Skulls are doing some nice work. I don't need Mad Season this time around, although, Waltz of Pearls, Bane with 3 bounces. Sounds good to me. Might as well get the gold value up. I guess there's a question. Do I wish I had made Deltarune last a little longer? I won't say it wasn't fun, that's for sure. Because it really was. And I didn't even mind the combat. I just suck at it because, again, it's been so long. It's hard to really appreciate, I guess, would be the best way to put it. Balman Way. Sanctuary. Wow, that just obliterated Medusa there. Nightmare. I guess I did notice that Chris didn't seem too happy seeing Toriel with Sans. I don't think it's because he dislikes Toriel. I don't think Chris dislikes Toriel. In fact, even getting her caught up in the whole Dark World might have been completely by accident or seen as a necessary evil given the orders given to... Excellent, another upgrade. Yeah, given the orders to create a Dark World in their own house, but... Never. Wait. losing my train of thought here. I guess I'm starting to get tired. This will definitely have to be the last run, but I don't regret it. I think it might be my best to use a teleporter. Cosmic Finger. Victory sword levels? Sure, why not? I'm running out of things to talk about. The next episode coming in a year is a bit earlier than I thought, but then again, maybe in the later half, but it's still not the ending. Chapter 7 is, well, I wouldn't be surprised if that one ends up being the longest by a long shot, just because, by virtue of being the finale. Especially since that's where all the things we do is going to come to a head. Regardless of whether the true girl hero is the true a human hero, the player character's intended role in this between whatever the narrator was after trying to make happen. We don't even know if the narrator or whoever it was at this start is even an actual entity in the story or not, or that's just supposed to be exposition dump. Work either way, especially given this is the Toby Fox thing. Little imps stabbing people. Victory sword level, that's fine. And there we are, to my two familiars familiars per level. The two familiar levels in a single level. Nice unlock, I think. I'm not sure how much I like the arrows. They look kind of nice, I guess, but sure how much I like the Hexen Nightmare. Aesthetically, the skull's pretty cool and all, but you need a curse item for that, and depending on the level, you don't want that very early, since it doesn't just make more enemies more numerous, which is good because that's more XP, it also makes them stronger, and I mean significantly. Might as well go with more spellbook spells. That can't possibly end badly for everyone involved, am I right? I'm really tired. I'm not even thinking about Deltarune as much as I was earlier, and that's a problem, right? Yeah, it's definitely a game I really am liking, but I also have a hard time calling it a favorite. So like, if you're asking me which is better between it and Clair Obscura, my immediate thought is Clair Obscura, for all its flaws, is at least a complete game right now. While Toby Fox has been open with the fact that it's going to take quite a bit for Deltarune to finish, and that still means I'm basically going to have to recap like I did here before going back. Especially since starting from the chapters can be nice just for getting the main story, but there's just so many upgrades you could possibly get beforehand, and, well, as mentioned, the upgrades you can get with each chapter are rather substantial if you're not just using the generic gear each time. Like, yeah, it's pretty much easy to get a bunch of amber cards and fuse them all into a silver card, but having the multiple ribbon colors and putting them in there, there's something else entirely. Oh my. No Rune Tracer this time. It's a familiar army. Time to fight ourselves. Right, the timer's stopped now. I guess that could be nice for just fighting the boss. Familiars are doing some good work, dang. The Imp's just poking the clone in the butt. Now my wind spell's doing some work. Like the familiars, there's even a character who specifically focuses on them. Since the game is so small scale, there aren't really... There's basically just there's a character for basically everything. You know, since there's been so many updates over the years. Probably a good reason I come back to this game even when there's no updates and stuff. Though, as mentioned, I do still definitely need to get a bunch of the secret stuff. Go back and start taking out what's involved. Actually, is there another secret I can do while I'm using this character here? Let's find out. I'm looking for the... Yeah, I'm looking for the list as we speak. Certain area where they spawn. Alright, I think I might be able to get this one. Up here. Alright, yeah, I think I know where I want to go here. do I have the upgrade? Yes, I do. Rocks. Alright, this is where I want to be. Why I'm taking a lot of damage really quick. 3 levels? Well, don't mind if I do. Not enough. Is there a place that only the Frozen Shades summit spawn? Let's see. Okay, yeah, it's in the right side of this particular area. Where the boss is, it says, so that should be fine. It's always nice when a game has you the ability, allows you to unlock the ability to play as enemies. Sometimes they just plain have a nice aesthetic. Last. I'm in the wrong spot. At least I'm getting some cash, good cash out of this deal. Unfortunately, where there are attract orbs to summon all the experience orbs, to me there are no equivalent to summon all the gold to me. So that's going to be mildly inconvenient. Ah, crap, a chest here. I can't leave that behind. I'm too greedy. Yeah, that's how Chris is gonna get me. Just by leaving out a dollar bill with a fishing hook on the end. My heart immediately will go out to it, and they can just toss me into the bucket. It'll be highly, highly embarrassing. What will be useful to me? yeah, this is like the Sammy achievement, so it's pretty easy as long as you find the room where they spawn in. On you. Stone. Alright, what do I want? Chandelier for bigger AoE. Candelabra for the bigger AoEs. Still got about 7 minutes left, but I think this will be worth it, personally. Yeah, that gives area up by 3%, this gives area up by 5. It's clear which one the better one is here. Rare Candelabra. More Torna's box level. That's all, huh? 9. Oh my, the curse has been enhanced. I just realized the worst I have to go through would be a third act misunderstanding. Don't get me wrong, I get why that goes through it. And it's not like the Deltarune doesn't exactly have a good reason for it to happen. I mean, there's a lot about Chris that both the Soul and Chris keep from everyone. Rousey themselves can love, but then again, Rousey, I guess Rousey also was hiding a lot, but when they finally came clean, nobody was really bothered by it. Especially since I think that's point to speed up time a bit, so let's do that. Giant rock. I am throwing giant rocks at people. Truly, this is the ultimate in magic. Third act misunderstanding does exist for a reason, but it's so overused, it's kind of frustrating, to be honest. Again, it's like any trope, it exists for a reason. It's not inherently bad, it's all a matter of how it's handled, and I guess the situation in Kristen is unique enough that I guess it could cause some very frustrating understandings. Some students here, but were willing to hear Ralphs out. They should be willing to listen to Chris. Well, that also seems Chris is willing to share. As far as we know, the only one Chris might have shared it with is Carol, and even that's a bit iffy, because it depends entirely on how you read her statement as to whether or not she's referring to the soul or not. It's all a crapshoot now, but yeah, things are definitely taking shape, and that's for sure. Again, there's just so much we're missing. I hesitate to call it better than even Claire Obscure, even though it probably is. Even in Clear, no, it's probably better than Claire Obscure for a handful of reasons. But then again, Claire Obscure only really got soured on this Act 3 because, well, to be blunt, you could tell they were running out of money, and compromises had to be made. Unfortunate, but that is the reality of how that sort of thing works. So we'll have to see. Super Candy Box 2 Turbo Advanced Weapons. Sure, Sarah McCry. Quit and cash in. Sadly, the secrets don't get revealed here, but we will find out shortly here. Innocent, familiar, more max projectiles. Oh, they're actually quite cheap. And Frozen Shade. The Goblin and the Fairy. Oh, I see. You can play as any of the familiars. Oh, that's neat. Those are all the spell-based ones. Yeah, the spells they use when you summon them. Alright, that's neat. But that's going to be all for tonight. Thanks for listening to my speculation, and my hopes, my concerns, my general thoughts, and or just paying attention to the Undertale stuff. So, I think there's actually a decent amount here, so I should probably rate out. Usuals aren't really streaming, so unfortunate. So I'd probably best just cut it. Unfortunate, but that's how it goes sometimes. Well, thanks for listening to my incessant yapping while I just unlock stuff in Vampire Survivors. So, until next time, thank you for watching, hope you had a good time, and I'll see you later.